So are we up right now?
No,
No?
in just a second.
Okay.
As soon as you see it.
Where will I see it?
I'll keep it.
Oh, got it.
8:30. You can go ahead and get started.
Good morning, everybody. Just checking in here. It's been a little while since we've done one of these streams, updating everyone on where things stand on the Nancy Guthrie disappearance, what we know at this point, what we're still trying to get, some of the things that have happened over the last 36 hours. This has been probably the busiest 36-hour stretch we've seen in this investigation since it really first started taking off. So we just kind of want to update everyone, see where we're at this point. We've got our live pictures out there in Tucson of what's going on. We're streaming this pretty much everywhere and anywhere. As you take a look at those live photos there on Drell's, got popped up for us there. That's Nancy Guthrie's house this morning. It's just to the, she's got sort of a traffic circle. That's how her driveway works there. So if you've seen the flowers, the signs, that growing message there, that's just where that gentleman right there is walking to. It's on that side of the house over there. And that's something you'll see as we keep taking this live shot here is people walking in front of it, things like that, because this is a very narrow street. So cameras get set up on one side of the street, but if you need to walk through or drive through, that takes place between the house and our camera. So that's why you're seeing a lot of activity of, there's just news cameras from all around the world that are out here in Tucson covering this investigation. While I was out there just a few days ago, I was following the FBI on a search, and there was a team there from a couple of entertainment stations based in New York. I heard someone speaking a language that I couldn't quite recognize, so they were speaking to their viewers in a different country. It's incredible when you're out there to see just the level of interest. We know the level of interest. You're watching this stream right now, so you're aware of this. But when you are there and you see how many news cameras there are, it's breathtaking. Especially even on a Sunday morning like this. It's all the weekend teams out there, things like that are covering it. So if you're watching our stream, we appreciate you right now. We're streaming this everywhere if you want to send it out to your other friends if they want to get this update on where we stand on this investigation. There's a lot we got to get through, a lot to talk about. So we're at fox10phoenix.com. We got the Fox Local app, our YouTube page, our Fox 10 Phoenix TikTok page as well. We are all over on that right now. We're going to call in Irene in just a few minutes and see what she's seeing out there this morning. But before we do that, let's take a step back to see how we got here this morning. And we'll start showing you some of the important visuals here in just a second. But I thought it was important to just take this live shot of Nancy's house here. And it was February 1st right here when all of this started. Nancy Guthrie taken from her Tucson home. And at that point, it was a day later, so it was February 2nd, where the Pima County Sheriff Chris Nanos, in his press conference, said, this is being investigated as a crime. That was the moment everything changed on this, where we shifted from missing person case, maybe wandered away from the house, is this going to be a silver alert, something like that, to a crime. It was shocking. This is a woman in her 80s who has mobility issues. That's not someone who gets kidnapped. That's not someone who gets taken from their home. Shocking. And then February 3rd, we captured video of dried blood on the stoop outside of Nancy Guthrie's home. That was a key moment because that scene had already been released. At that moment, the sheriff's department had released the scene. So people were just walking around the property, things like that. It was a very interesting point in that investigation. That's obviously changed a lot since then. You can't just walk up to the front door anymore. They've got police cruisers set up in front, the sheriff's deputy vehicles. They've got those set up in front out there. And then it was after that on February 4th was when we got our first message from Savannah Guthrie, her sister and her brother by her side. That was when you started to really feel the emotions in this, because the ransom was first put out on February 3rd, the day before, to TMZ and some of those Tucson stations. That was when we realized just the bizarreness of all of this. It was shocking as we were seeing all of this unfold in front of us. And then when they addressed it in a video, that really gave credence to that ransom note and made us think, okay, this isn't a joke. This isn't a jerk who's trying to capitalize on the family, that's trying to steal money. Maybe there's some realism to what this person put out there. Maybe this is a real ransom note. And that was when, a lot of this forensic investigation, this digital forensics investigation began in earnest, trying to track down who sent the email. Because there's an email associated with that got sent to TMZ and got sent to these local TV stations. Trying to uncover who sent that, though, it's tricky. I've talked to a lot of cybercrime experts on this. It takes time. Everyone I've talked to, though, has told me they will be able to figure this out. They will be able eventually to piece down where that email came from for that ransom note. It's just not right now. It's not today that they've solved that. But at some point, they'll be able to get that, which is, we're waiting for that moment, right? I mean, it'll take a long time. So then let's go to the Thursday. So what is this? The fifth day of all of this happening. They started putting up billboards. I'm sure you've seen those if you've been in Arizona driving around. If you're not in the Southwest area, you're watching this stream on our TikTok page and YouTube page from faraway places. All the billboards, those digital billboards, they're all about Nancy Guthrie right now. Details about her, details about who they're looking for. And then last weekend, we got another social media post from Savannah Guthrie. That was when they said they would pay. The deadline was Monday, 5 p.m. That deadline passed, and there was no further updates. Since then, we've gotten more notes that TMZ has put out, updating people on where all of this has gone, and I just want to go through some of the questions you all are, and please, if you got questions, let us know. We want to answer your questions. We want to talk through this. This is a confusing situation. There's a lot going on here. The details are not entirely clear as it's happening, so we want to give you the best correct information as we know it. We're the people that are in touch with the Sheriff's Department and the FBI on this. We've got a lot of information. We want to get it out to you. So a question here from TikTok. What was the manhunt about last night? So I think you're referring to the situation that happened on Friday night. That was a big moment in all of this. So, and again, we'll call Irene in just a second here. She showed up just hours after that wrapped up, and it's a very interesting perspective that I want to talk to her about. But they served a search warrant at a property about 2 miles away from Nancy's house. They detained several people in that. And after a few hours of searching, using their warrant, all of that, they let everyone go there. They were no longer detained. And the sheriff has been interesting in how he sort of worded that, is that because they served a search warrant, they get detained. So it's not like they went out and said, John Doe, you are detained. It's more that they were in the property that they were searching. That's important, I think, for clarity and understanding of how that worked there. The other interesting scene, though, is the scene that happened at the Culver's parking lot just a little bit over. Our cameras were there. We saw a tarp being put up as authorities started pulling something out of the back of this Range Rover, presumably evidence of some sort, removing items. They didn't want the public to see those things. This was a few days ago. I think this was on Wednesday or Thursday, or this was on Thursday in front of Nancy Guthrie's house when, again, this scene had been cleared, but the FBI returned and they put a tarp over the front patio here. Unclear what they were investigating, what the update in this, but this was just 2 days after they released the surveillance images from that doorbell camera. But so Friday night at that Culver's parking lot, they put up the tarp to blur it from our cameras so that we couldn't see exactly what was going on. As they were pulling things out, there was someone in the back of one of the cruisers there that they were talking to. So was that person just detained? Were they arrested? What was going on? Verbiage is important on all of that, because this is the first time I remember the sheriff saying this was a person of interest. This was not someone who was detained at a scene. This was a person of interest. What we do not know is who that person was. We don't know why they're a person of interest. We also don't know what the evidence was that caused them to say to a judge, we need a search warrant, and then a judge signs off on that search warrant. We don't know what those things are. That hasn't been released to us. So that answers a couple of other questions from TikTok. Have they made any arrests? No, they have not made any arrests. A key piece of evidence they're certainly going through in this investigation, DNA. Obviously, in today's forensics world, you go through as much DNA as you possibly can. So at the house, they've recovered some level of DNA. We don't know what that DNA was, but we do know it wasn't Nancy's DNA, it wasn't Nancy's family's DNA, or any of the people that would typically be inside of that house. That's thrilling for investigators. That is a substantial lead to go off of. Now, how long it takes for them to get the DNA results back, and whether or not they have a match to that from someone who is one of, this person of interest or someone that's been detained, we don't have that yet. We need to know that. That's what's so, at this point, thrilling in this investigation, because we want answers. We want someone arrested. We want Nancy back, hopefully safe, hopefully okay. We want justice that's going on. So that is a key moment in all this. Let me, as we're talking here, let me get Irene on the phone, because I want to talk to her a little bit about what she's going on. So I'm just going to give her a call here. We'll put her on speakerphone, chat with her for a couple of minutes about what's going on out there. So, because she has an interesting perspective because she was at the scene. Irene, are you there?
I'm here, Steve.
Yes. All right. So we're on right now, Irene. Thanks for talking to us. I know we were just on Fox 10 this morning, all morning, as you were live there in Tucson, updating everybody. But I was just chatting with everybody here on the stream about something we talked a little bit about on TV, which is that you have an interesting perspective because you were in Rio Rico where the first search warrant was served, and that was the morning after you were there, and you're also there yesterday morning at the other scene about 2 miles from Nancy's house when they served that second search warrant. Both of those times you showed up pretty early, right? And it was already clear.
Yeah, I mean, last Wednesday, the incident happened in the overnight hours. We got there, I think, Rio Rico was about 3 hours from the station. We probably got there around 6 a.m., something like that. The scene was already clear. There was still some media there, but no police, no sheriff's officers, no FBI. And then again, yeah, as you mentioned, the scene yesterday, which was a lot closer to Tucson in the Catalina foothills area, just 2 miles or so from Nancy Guthrie's home. The scene was clear there too. It was a neighborhood, and there, was maybe one other media outlet there. Everyone else had cleared it by the time we got there, around 6:30 a.m. I believe it was, something like that, yesterday morning. So these scenes have been clearing out pretty quickly. We had 3 people detained and then released in a matter of hours, really. And then last week it was the same person, but same kind of incident. A person in Rio Rico was detained and then released that same night.
That is interesting. We're going to take a really quick break here. And then can we talk to you for a few minutes on the other side of this break, Irene?
What was that you were cutting out there, Steve?
Well, we got cell service issues, too. We'll be right back in just a second. We'll talk to you soon.
Sounds good.
Welcome back on into our stream here where we're covering the Nancy Guthrie investigation. Appreciate you all joining us on our Fox Local app, on our YouTube page, our Fox TikTok page at fox10phoenix.com. What we're trying to do right now is sort of just reset everything, what we know at this point, what we don't know, what we're trying to learn, and what, hopefully, what we know investigators are trying to uncover here as soon as possible, right? I mean, there's a ticking clock here. There's a missing person that they're trying to recover. So the time is of the essence in all of this. We've got a lot of questions coming in from YouTube and TikTok. Please keep sending them in. We'll try to get them answered. First, I want to go to Irene, who's live out there right now at the scene in Tucson. Irene, Andrell, who's got our live camera here, who we appreciate for getting this live shot for us, just moved from one end of the driveway to the other, and we now see that there's a sheriff's deputy vehicle there. My memory, when I've been out there, that sheriff's deputy vehicle's not been in the driveway, so they've got the lights on, and they're kind of just making sure nobody walks up to the door, right?
Well, yesterday it was the same thing when we came out here to see the sheriff's department. Their vehicle was in the...
Okay.
Just trying to make sure that no media, neighbors, you mentioned last week when you were here, the pizza delivery driver that dropped something off, just no one who's not supposed to be up there, just making sure the scene is still all clear.
And just to tell our, you kind of broke up. We got most of what you said, but you did break up a little bit. Cell phone service is absolutely atrocious in front of Nancy's house out there, isn't it?
Well, yes. I mean, a lot of people have been asking me what kind of area is it that she, was abducted from. And the thing is, I wouldn't describe it as completely rural in the case that, in the sense that it's, away from everything, but the houses are pretty far spread apart out here. We're right by all the mountains. And as you mentioned, the cell service is not great.
Yeah, it's not a tech-friendly area. You're 10 minutes from downtown Tucson, but at the same time, it's a dark sky community. They don't want streetlights in there. Apparently, they don't want very good cell phone service either. I've had to walk around when I've been out there to make phone calls and things because it's just a little bit tricky out there with the phones, and maybe that offers some perspective to everyone on just sort of what that neighborhood is like out there. Let's talk neighbors in the area and just sort of the feeling in front of her house. There's been so many moments in all of these days for the last 15 days where FBI's going around and knocking on doors, and we're following doing that and seeing what they're investigating. We've seen them move through brush and try to, they're looking for different pieces of evidence maybe as they're doing that. We've seen the helicopter fly just feet above the house and circle like that. What's it like out there on a Sunday morning?
To be honest with you, Steve, right now it is pretty quiet. It was pretty quiet yesterday, too. We still have the growing pile of flowers for Nancy Guthrie and her family. They have that sign that was out there we've been seeing over the last couple of weeks. That is continuing to grow. They have candles, so many prayers for the Guthrie family. But as far as law enforcement out here, there is the one sheriff's officer vehicle that is in the driveway of the Guthrie home. And then anyone else out here on the street is media from all over the country. And then as far as neighbors, we have some people who are walking their dogs. But at this point, a lot of them, they've already spoken to the media about it over the last couple of weeks. And in fact, we had some neighbors come up to us today, me and my photographer, and say, why are you guys still out here if there's no new information? Because it's not just us. There's a whole, which you can't see from, the viewer's point of view, but I'm looking right now at a line of, at least a dozen media trucks, cameras out here, and everyone's out here. And the thing is, we talked about this on air just a little bit ago. Well, the reason we're here is because what if something breaks in the case? If
Absolutely.
We're, a couple hours away in Phoenix, we can't get here as readily if we're coming right from the station. So we're making sure we always have someone on the ground here ready to jump in case something is found, in case something happens, like happened on Friday night.
It's such a good point. You have to be there to know it's happening because it took them a long time for them to update us what happened in that Culver's parking lot. And we only know what was going on in that Culver's parking lot because our cameras were right there and captured everything that was happening behind the tarp. That was how they let us know there was, a person of interest in the case that they were questioning and then later released there. Going back to your perspective at Rio Rico and being at the house 2 miles away yesterday morning, you're a morning show reporter, Irene. You cover overnight crime scenes all the time. If there's an OIS that happens in Phoenix at 10 p.m., there's still a scene there when you get into work at 5 a.m., right? And you show up at that scene?
Yeah, I mean, well, during the week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, I'm in at 3:30, and there, depending on the severity of an OIS, which is an officer-involved shooting, absolutely, that is still the longer investigation. There's a lot of things to piece through when it involves an officer. But some other scenes, if it's someone a hit and run at 8 p.m., 9 p.m., 10 p.m. at night, but the person's okay and survived. Well, that scene might be cleared by the time I come in at 3:30. But if it's anything involving a fatality or an officer-involved shooting, as you mentioned, those are usually scenes that are still there. But these scenes, they're all being cleared by the time I get in the morning. I have yet to see, we had the scene Tuesday into Wednesday in Rio Rico. We had the scene Friday into Saturday. I was in both mornings after that. Wednesday, I was in as early as 3:30, 3-hour drive to get down to Rio Rico. Scene was clear. Yesterday morning, we were there by 5:36, or I think 6:30, and the scene was also clear. So I guess that gives some perspective as how quickly they're moving things along here and just trying to investigate this case. But the other thing is we don't know if those people are still, people of interest in this case or not. They were detained and released, no arrest warrant, but we don't know what else they're doing with the investigation as far as those people are concerned.
That's such a good point. I love your perspective, though, on how quickly certain scenes clear. A big scene would never clear by 5 a.m. A scene where no one died, maybe it's a hit and run and they're investigating that clears in a couple of hours. That's still not going on in the morning. So that gives you a perspective of how seriously these scenes are taking place, because they are being cleared in just a few hours. They're serving their search warrant, they're doing their job, and then they're getting out of there. It's not a 12-hour investigation at these scenes. And we don't know if they said they're cooperating. They said the person of interest at the Culver's parking lot was cooperating. Does that mean they gave over their DNA? Does that mean they answered all their questions and they feel like they were being pretty honest with that? We don't know the perspective on that, but we do know they have some interesting DNA that they're trying to get results on, right, Irene?
That's true, Steve, from the scene from Friday night, I should say. But also, I'm going to mention, too, something about the scene on Wednesday. So we actually had a Fox reporter, it wasn't me, on Tuesday night into Wednesday morning, and they were able to speak with the man who was detained. His name was Carlos, I believe, was detained that night. And then the next morning, we went back out, and we saw him in his backyard. We tried to talk to him. At that point, I don't know maybe what changed, but he didn't want to talk to media in the morning. Maybe he had enough of it after everything that blew up overnight, because his interview was everywhere across all the networks. But what I remember him saying from the interview on Tuesday night was just, I'm innocent. I don't know why they detained me. I don't know why. We spoke to his, I believe it was his stepmother, his mother-in-law out there as well. So same thing. I don't know why he was detained. He mentioned something along the lines of his eyes. So I don't know if that means maybe his eyes they thought looked like, the eyes that were in that surveillance video. We don't know exactly what, but I thought his perspective on Tuesday night and Wednesday was interesting because he was someone we actually talked to who was detained and, had some confusion as far as why, and then was telling us a little bit about what authorities were saying to him.
You're so right, and that's kind of been a similar perspective we've gotten when the FBI is going neighbor to neighbor, asking questions of the neighbors, and we get to go and talk to them after. What did the FBI ask you about? It can be really revealing of where they're at in the investigation. And for the most part, when I've talked to those neighbors, they've been saying they just asked to search my property, to look around for evidence, ask if I had surveillance cameras. And that was in Annie's neighborhood, but they've also been doing the same thing in Nancy's neighborhood too. So it's interesting perspective to know that they are still just sort of combing this neighborhood, because every one of these houses has a huge property, probably, I'm guessing, an acre. It feels about an acre of deserted forest around there. So that it's not clear. You can't see right through the property and say, oh, there's a glove in the bush over there. You've got to sort of walk through it to see it all. And that, if you don't want to get a search warrant for every single one of these properties, you just ask them. And most of the neighbors have said, yes, please walk my property. If I can be helpful in any way, please let me be helpful. Irene, I'm going to let you go at this point. I really appreciate your perspective on this. You're doing a fantastic job out there updating everyone. Stay ready, because as we have this live shot of Nancy's house here, I think the reason it's so compelling, that word live in the top left corner right there, is because we all know, based on what's happened in Rio Rico and on Friday night, at any second, all of that changes, where that sheriff's vehicle goes, there's a place they're all headed to, and now we're talking about something else entirely, a different search warrant being served and hopefully answers. So just want to say thanks again, Irene. Appreciate you.
Thank you, Steve.
All right, talk to you soon. All right, as we continue on our stream here, I want to get to some of the questions that you all have had on YouTube and TikTok here. So one of them has been what was found behind the tarp from TikTok. We would love to know that. They put that tarp up specifically so we wouldn't know what was behind that tarp. Theoretically, though, if they knew what they were searching for and they had a search warrant for that vehicle ahead of time, they knew what they were pulling out, and we can get that search warrant and see what it was. But that search warrant's not available for us to look at yet in this active investigation. But hopefully we get that answer at some point soon. Some other questions we have. Why hasn't the family paid the ransom? What I'll say there is we don't really know if they have or haven't. But a lot of the analysts and perspective we've had on this is without a proof of life, without a solution on how they would return Nancy, without answers on how all of that would work, which requires a communication, a back and forth. Why would you pay the ransom at home? Why would you do any of that? Or you're just throwing your money away. This is someone who, if we were to believe that the ransom person is the person who's the kidnapper, this is someone who just kidnapped an elderly woman out of a house. You're going to trust that person? Absolutely not. So that's the analysts are saying you got to have proof of life, and you have to have a game plan, a communication with that person to know that they're real and they're going to follow through with that. So I think that's why you haven't seen a ransom get paid. But the family has said they're willing to pay it. There's just a lot of details that need to go through with that before they do. Some of the other questions, could she be in Mexico? Great question. I mean, I think that's the expansive search we're talking about here. The only pushback I would have on that, every search warrant so far has been the farthest away is Rio Rico. That's in America. It's close to the Mexico border, but we're still in America there. So, I'm certain that's something that investigators are looking into and determining. Did they find anything in the car they searched? Again, we talked about that. Yes, they did. They pulled evidence out of that vehicle, and they talked to that person of interest. How informative that evidence is, we don't know. But needless to say, they haven't told us what that evidence is, so hopefully it is helpful in their investigation. And what are the next steps? The DNA could be very helpful here. So we're still waiting for the results of that DNA. FBI might have it. The Sheriff's Department might have it. We don't have the results of that DNA, though. That could prove to be helpful. The digital forensics investigation that's still taking place here, can they pull up more surveillance video?